Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for attending our candidate forum for the riding of Kitchener South-Hespeler. My name is James Sebastian Scott from City News 570. I'll be the moderator for today's discussion. The Chamber takes its political process very seriously as they are nonpartisan and work with all elected officials municipally, provincially, and federally. These candidate forums are an important opportunity for our members and the community to hear about issues of concern and importance to the business community. This is the last of 4 events organized by the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce in advance of the June 2nd vote. I want to thank our title sponsor, Kitchener-Waterloo Association of Realtors, and our media sponsors, City News 570 and Rogers TV. The format for this event will be 90-second introductory remarks for each candidate, followed by questions in priority areas identified by the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce through their advisory committees and responses from the membership at large. The questions will be asked in rotation. The moderator reserves the right to terminate answers where appropriate or to grant additional chances for candidates to speak to ensure fairness in speaking times. At the conclusion of the forum, each candidate will be allowed 1 minute for closing remarks, which will proceed in reverse order from opening remarks. We'll now commence with 90-second opening remarks. The candidate order as determined this afternoon is David Weber of the Green Party of Ontario, then Joanne Weston of the Ontario New Democratic Party, and then Ishmael Muhammad from the Ontario Liberal Party. David, will begin with you with your opening remarks.
Thank you, James. I'm David Weber, the Green Party of Ontario MPP candidate for Kitchener South-Hespeler. In these past several months of knocking on doors, residents have told me their stories, the unaffordability of a roof over their head, of trying to buy a home with it being out of reach, the cost of living in general, and more people suffering the effects of poverty. The need to improve all of our healthcare, including mental health care, is an obvious issue. The pandemic response failures which we've had, and it's worsened the strains on small businesses and allowed many of them to collapse. Yes, people still want a livable planet. That's something I'm hearing as a Green candidate at the door. And we can protect our world by shifting to a high-tech solution economy with cleaner and greener options. We must do what's right and what's necessary, and there are solutions for a prosperous and sustainable world. And in Ontario, we can do our part as part of that world. I'm going to ask that you take a look at our plans on the gpo.ca website, because I'm sure that regardless of how many great questions we have today, you're not going to hear everything that we need to discuss. It's a short time. We must take action for the Ontario we want, and we do need better leadership than what we've had. My commitment is to work across party lines, putting community interests first. And I'm suggesting to you, and I believe many of you believe it's true, that nothing else will improve our next government as much as having more Green representatives in it. On or before June 2nd, I ask for your vote of support to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Joanne, we will start with your opening remarks here as well.
Okay, thank you, James. Good afternoon, and thank you to everyone at the Chamber, Rogers, City News, and the Realtors for helping organize today's forum. The pandemic laid bare the issues that have existed in healthcare, education, long-term care, and in-home care for far too long. People I've spoken to across Kitchener South-Hespeler understand that we can't keep doing things the way we have for the last couple decades. Things are getting worse, not better, for far too many people. The cost of living and housing is making it difficult for many people to pay their bills each month and driving people to find homes outside of our region. This impacts our economy as families dine and shop in their new hometowns. People are looking for a new way of doing things, investing in upstream services like mental health care, pharmacare, dental care, and safe, affordable homes that keep people healthy and out of hospitals in the first place. And they understand that investments need to be made to ensure that services like healthcare and long-term care are there when they need them. We can no longer deny the connection between the health and well-being of our citizens and the impact it has on jobs, the economy, and people's quality of life. The NDP will invest in a social infrastructure that will draw investment and workers to our province and to our region. We will do this strategically with a local procurement process and creating new good-paying jobs through our Green New Democratic deal that will also help address the climate crisis. It's time to put everyday people at the center of policies, to listen to our neighbors who are telling us what they need to make their life better, more affordable, and to help people get ahead. On June 2nd, I hope you will consider me, Joanne Weston, as your NDP, for your candidate for MPP. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Ismail, will end with your remarks here.
Thank you, James, and thank you to everybody else who's actually watching and have a care of how this politics is going to happen in our province. I just wanted to start off by saying good afternoon to everybody. My name is Ishmael Muhammad. I'm proud to be your Liberal candidate in Kitchener South-Hespeler, and thank you for the opportunity to have a conversation today. So, who is Ishmael Muhammad? I've immigrated to Canada in 1993 from a Civil War torn country. And when I came here, I have my family and I developed the culture in our society that we live in the multicultural community. I've grown and educated myself here. I went through poverty. I was part of those folks that we are trying to help at the moment, and here I am speaking to you. So what forced me to run for office? Because I work for the City of Kitchener in the Community Services Department, and knowing the need in our community, I put my name in the hat because people are saying people over politics, because I think politics went too far away from the people. So because of that, I put my name on it with Liberal. The reason why I put with Liberal is because it was very democratic. I was not appointed by the party. The people chose me, and I'm running under their platform. So that is where Ontario Liberals is at. So the Ontario Liberal Party has put forward an ambitious platform that will help address Ontario's biggest issues and support those who need it most. We're committed to grow an economy while protecting our environment. We will put seniors at the center of public health initiatives and make sure that all Ontarians have the proper access in healthcare. And we will reinvest in our education system after Doug Ford and his Conservatives have defunded it for the past 4 years. So thank you for having me today, and I'm excited to hear or to listen or to answer the questions that James Sebastian will be asking us.
Thank you all for the opening remarks. We will begin the question and answer portion now. The first topic we'll begin with is housing. And Joanne, we will begin with you on the first question. The average home price in Waterloo region is now $1 million. The average 2-bedroom apartment in our community rents for $1,356 per month. Our population is growing faster than our housing supply, and we are projected to remain one of Canada's fastest growing communities. You can see the concern. How will your plan ensure we remain a livable community?
Thank you for the question. For families in Ontario, getting a place of their own has been getting harder and harder for decades. This, along with the cost of living, are the top issues that I'm hearing at the doors across Kitchener's South-Hespeler. Renters in particular are concerned that they'll never be able to buy a home, or if rent evicted, they'll never be able to find a new place that they can afford. I have 3 daughters who are at the stage in life where they're looking to buy or rent their first home, and they're afraid that they're not going to be able to find a home in the region because it is so expensive. I and the NDP believe that housing is a right. Everyone deserves a good, stable place to call home, a place they can afford. So our plan will increase the supply of homes that you can afford by helping people create basement apartments, laneway houses, and granny flats to create more new homes in the short term. We'll close loopholes and create a 20% vacancy tax so homes are not sitting empty. We'll then act on the Housing Affordability Task Force recommendations by updating zoning rules to increase the supply of more affordable missing middle housing like duplexes, triplexes, and townhomes to build 1.5 million homes, and we'll end exclusionary zoning. We'll bring back rent control and stop unfair rent evictions that see rent prices increase by hundreds of dollars with little or no investment in between the renters. And we'll help first-time home buyers with a down payment of 10% home equity loan that won't be paid back until they sell their home. And of course, we need to address the growing number of neighbors that are unhoused in our community. The number of people without homes has tripled in the past few years. We'll work with municipalities to create and fund supportive housing. We'll build 60,000 supportive housing units and expand the lifespan of 260,000 existing homes. And we'll have a goal to end chronic homelessness within 10 years.
Thank you, Joanne. Ismail, same question for you. How will your plan ensure we remain a livable community?
Well, I'm going to try to bring it home. We have our homelessness have increased from 300 to a few thousand right now. And those who are out there going through tough times are there. This affects them completely. And the other side of it, for the ones who are able to buy homes, is very difficult for them to buy. And nowadays, the housing is averaging $900,000. So how do we take that apart? In social housing and people who are buying their own homes. So what is the Liberals going to do about it? So Ontario Liberals have a plan to make buying and renting affordable by building urgently needed homes, putting land speculators on notice, and closing rent control loopholes created by Doug Ford. So we will put families back at the center of housing planning, and we'll double the pace of home building this year, keeping that pace until we have built 1.5 million homes. The Liberal plan will create new Ontario Home Building Corporation to finance and build housing for all types, and the wait list for social and supportive housing and build affordable homes for first-time buyers. We will work quickly together with municipal partners to end exclusionary zoning policies and allow homes with up to 3 units and 2 stories to be built in residential areas across our province, with this permission also extending to secondary and laneway suites. So we will ban new non-resident ownership. We'll also tax empty homes and put a use it or lose it levy on speculators with serviced land and approved building permits. Ontario voters have a choice between the 4 Conservatives who have introduced 4 plans but made no progress, and Ontario Liberals who will address this crisis once and for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ismail. David, same question for you. How will your plan ensure we remain a livable community? Sorry, David, you're still on mute.
There we go. Sorry. So yesterday I was talking to somebody who shared with me a thought that I found quite interesting. They said listening to the Liberal plans, the NDP plan, and the Green plans for a lot of these issues, they found them to be very similar. And I pointed out, well, we've got some pretty sound research as to what's needed. We've got some great recommendations for like the affordable homes that we need and the supportive housing units, 60,000 of them with wraparound supports for mental health and addictions. These things here are core to the progressive parties. And I'm glad that everybody seems to be largely on board. But the one thing that I'm sorely disappointed that no political party other than the Greens is talking about is the root cause for skyrocketing house prices. The old political parties are blaming foreign investors buying up our housing as a deflection from the problem. The biggest issue is really the domestic commodification of our housing supply. It's the biggest part of the problem. We have domestic real estate investment trusts that are buying up huge swaths of our housing like concert ticket scalpers for their own profits. And the average Ontarian can't compete with these large Canadian investment corporations determined to monopolize housing ownership, either by large-scale purchasing of home builders' stock or by outbidding those wanting to buy existing neighborhood homes for themselves and their family. This is causing runaway housing inflation. We have to deal with this cancerous spread of corporate monopolies gobbling up all the housing across the province. We have to level the playing field. No matter how many homes we build, this is not going to solve the problem unless if we deal with the oppressive speculation that is making home ownership out of reach for the average person. The Green Party has a plan to deal with this, to stop the oppressive commodification by domestic interests, check out the gpo.ca/housing plan. There's far too much for me to go into it in this amount of time, but we need to take action on this, and the Greens have the plan and the moral fortitude to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Next question, we will also stick with housing on. A large-scale rental project takes 4 to 6 years to get units on the market. Office space can be converted to residential space in a fraction of that time and is often located near existing transit routes. How will your plan get housing stock online quickly to respond to our urgent needs? Ismail, we'll start with you on that question, please.
I think you can hear me, guys, right?
Yeah, we
Hello?
got you. Yeah.
Okay, good. So can you repeat that question quickly for me?
Sure. A large-scale rental project takes 4 to 6 years to get units on the market. Office space can be converted to residential space in a fraction of that time and is often located near existing transit routes. How will your plan get housing stock online quickly to respond to our urgent needs?
Well, we will work with municipalities and municipality government to make sure that these issues that we have in our cities, we address it with them and we come up with a solution. Most often, honestly, what we do here in our liberal party is to have conversations with the communities and partner up and collaborate and come up with solutions that is needed in our community. So that's one thing we do at best. That's something that we were willing to have a conversation and addressing those issues.
Thank you. David, the same question for you. How will you get the online stock online quicker with your plan?
I think it's a great idea to take we have so much of our business that's shifting over to online sales. We're seeing retail like shopping mall strips and stuff with a lot of vacancies and empty spaces. And as new buildings come on board, the ground floors, having those commercial spaces there that are more usable, I think is a better idea. But you're absolutely right that some of these places, like larger malls and stuff with empty spaces, they are along mass transit routes already. So to have our municipalities, to have cooperatives, to have nonprofits all work together to invest in those, to make them residential properties, that's just a wonderful idea. It makes sense. This is something the province has to work in conjunction with the municipalities to make it real, to make it happen. And this is innovative thinking that we need to pursue. So,
thank you, David. And Joanne, the same question for you as well.
Okay, thank you. The province can't solve the housing crisis alone. We need to work in partnership with municipalities, with business partners, with the community, and to come up with creative solutions like this. People want to live, work, and play in their communities. Being able to use the first floor as shops and upper floors as homes on transit allows them to do it. It's good for people's quality of life. It's good for the environment because people are making more use of transit. All in all, it's a good thing. So we need to work with our municipalities again to end exclusionary zoning and to come up with really creative solutions like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next topic of discussion will be energy. David will begin with you on that topic. The first question, to meet forecast demand, Ontario will need an additional 3 million EV charging stations. What's your plan to get them built?
Right. Well, the Green Party has a plan to make sure that we have EV charging stations at every rest stop along the 400 series highways by 2023. We will invest in our green mobility fund to ensure that we help the private sector, the communities get on board. We want to have 25% of all parking lots above or below ground, public spaces to have EV chargers by 2024. 50% of the parking lot spaces by 2030 and 75% by 2035. Now, was that question specifically related to EV charging? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the EV charging stations. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if we're going to restrict it just to that question, I think that's where I'm at. Oh, no, there's one other thing I'd like to share with you. When Doug Ford repealed the EV rebates provincially, he also took out of our building code the pre-wiring for EV charging at home. And this is something we need to bring back in. They need to be pre-wired and have EV charging in all new homes. If we're going to transition to that adaptation, we need to build our homes properly from the get-go. I don't know why he revoked that. It was very foolhardy.
Thank you, David. Joanne, same question for you. To meet the forecast demand, Ontario will need an additional 3 million EV charging stations. What's your plan to get them built?
Thanks. So yes, why the program was stopped 4 years ago or whatever it was by the current government, I'll never understand, because EV cars, use of them are on the rise. I myself have one, and it's very difficult to even get to the other side of Toronto because of the lack of charging stations. So we absolutely need to get those built, and we need to work with our partners in our business partners and municipalities to get that happening. And like the Green Party, we need to get charging stations in homes so that people can make use of their EV cars.
Thank you. Ismail, we'll go with you with what your plan is to get the EV charging stations built.
That's something that the Liberal Party is committed, James, to expand that in all communities and actually work with municipalities and businesses to make sure that, because we all know that each cities and each areas have different needs. So we will have a conversation with municipalities and regions and so on and so forth to make sure that that is actually something that happens and create that conversation. But what we will also do is Ontarians need clean, affordable, and reliable energy to power our homes and businesses. So Ontario Liberals will develop a long-term energy plan that will reverses the Ford Conservatives' cuts to conservation programs and includes the right cost-effective mix of nuclear, hydroelectricity, and renewables. We will cut pollution and make our electricity grid 100% clean by phasing out natural gas-fired generations. We are committed to a long-term energy plan that reverses the Ford Conservatives' cuts and as I said before, and prepares our grid for the long term.
Thank you. The next question is also with energy. Joanne, we'll begin with you on this question. Energy prices are already high, but we will need to make more costly investments to green our energy grid. How does your plan balance the need to keep energy affordable while making the investments needed to reduce emissions?
Yeah, absolutely. The hydro, the cost of electricity is one of the reasons that the cost of living has been increasing. Ontarians deserve hydro bills that they can afford. We pay in Ontario some of the highest residential electricity costs in Canada, and the costs have only risen under the past governments. And hydro bills are damaging Ontario's small and local businesses, from storefronts to greenhouse growers. We need to expand our hydroelectricity capacity that includes renewables like wind and solar power. And of course, the cheapest electricity is the electricity we don't use. We'll bring in an ambitious energy efficient building retrofit program to help families and businesses with the cost of retrofitting their homes and lowering their electricity bills.
Thank you. Ismail, with energy prices being already high, how does your plan balance the need to keep energy affordable while making the investments needed to reduce emissions?
Well, James, we will cut the cost of public transit fares to $1 per ride until 2024. We call it a buck-a ride. And lower fares for people transferring between transit systems, make transit completely free for veterans, close gaps in transit networks in every region of Ontario, and we will reverse the Ford Conservatives selling off railways and expand public transit throughout the province. We will also finish all transit plans already funded. We will better engage local communities on transit projects. We will provide up to $9,500 in rebates on electric vehicles and charging equipment. We will expand the availability of electric vehicle chargers. We'll also require all new passenger vehicles sold in Ontario be zero emissions by 2035. We will create zero emissions mandates for medium and heavy duty vehicles like shipping trucks. We will mandate electric vehicles and equipment across the public sector. We will electrify GO trains, public transit, and school buses. We will lead electric battery manufacturing in North America. We will launch dedicated fund for the next generation for electric batteries, unlock Northern Ontario metal and mineral reserves, because that's where we have a lot of miners there, scrap the ill-advised Highway 413 project, reinvesting the savings in school repairs. So, and we'll provide $500 rebate for e-bikes, so people can have their bikes, so on.
Thank you. And David, to finish this question, we'll ask you the same thing. How does your plan balance the need to keep energy affordable while making the investments needed to reduce emissions?
First of all, dealing with affordability, we can import excess power from Quebec at 5 cents a kilowatt hour. We can build solar and wind at 4 cents a kilowatt hour on average between those two. When you're looking at natural gas, which Doug Ford is looking at tripling our natural gas use over the next 10 years, that's coming in at 12 cents a kilowatt hour, much more expensive. And expanding nuclear is the plan. That's 16 cents a kilowatt hour plus that they're forecasting. And those never come in on cost. They always come in over budget and they're delayed. So the cheapest energy for us is the renewable energy. It doesn't line the pockets of the corporations that have been lobbying for the oil and gas industry or for nuclear, but we should really be doing what's fiscally the smartest thing to do for taxpayers and long-term better for our environment. We do have a $15,000 to $20,000 grant that we want to do in Ontario for retrofitting of homes to make them more energy efficient so you use less energy, and electrifying our homes by using heat pumps so that you're getting energy with exchanging it from outside in the air rather than having to burn natural gas to power your home. There are a lot of really great things that we can be doing. Research and development should be something that we prioritize. But it does look like this transition that's already well underway is something that we've been laggards in Ontario, and it's time that we start to be leaders.
Thank you. The next set of questions that we will go to will focus on healthcare. Ismail, will begin with you on this first question. Do you support or will you honor the recent commitment to building new hospital infrastructure in Waterloo region? I think you're on mute there, Ismail. Yeah, thank you.
So before I answer that, let me say this. Pandemic has demonstrated the need for building capacity in our healthcare system, particularly in our hospitals, right? If I can take an example in Kitchener, South-Hespeler, who's actually growing, is a population that's really growing fast because we're the fastest growing city in Canada, in the region in Canada. And the areas that there's this growth is in Hespeler, is actually doubling its own population. And we really don't have, the community in Hespeler don't have a hospital. They have to travel to Kitchener or Cambridge to get that. So, and as you know, if you travel there, is a bit far distance area. And we do need, yes, I would say definitely we do need here in this region to have more capacity in building in our own hospitals. and by doing so, we will also across the province, we need to add additional and permanently acute and chronic care beds. We've had that in Grand River, but what we need to also do is to hire more staff because we lack of nurses and doctors and so on. Improve expanded inpatient as well as urgent care facilities, but adding beds is not enough, but we must support our healthcare workers so that these beds can be properly staffed and do not sit empty, like we have seen some beds sit during the pandemic. Urgently repeal Bill 124 and expedite the process to get internationally educated nurses credentialized. Bill 124 caps pay raises for registered nurses at 1% and has virtually frozen their compensation since 2019. So doctors, registered nurses, BSWs are our heroes who stepped up at every moment of this pandemic to keep us safe. So it's time to repeal the wage cap and give them the compensation they deserve for their incredible work. So to summarize your question and including adding all that stuff is that, yes, I support building more hospitals in our region because we need it.
Thank you. David, do you support or will you honor the recent commitment to building new hospital infrastructure in Waterloo region?
Yes. I'm only going to add one thing. When we look at building this hospital, when we look at building this 1.5 million homes that all the progressives agreed by the recommendations we need to do, we need to be aware of the fact that 20% of our construction workforce is going to be leaving. They're going to be retiring over the next 10 years. We need to get the skilled trades for that. We also need the nurses to go into that hospital we're going to build. And we're already, 16,000 at least short on a conservative estimate, but it seems closer to 30,000 nurses we need. So how are we going to get all these people educated, nurses and the construction crews? And this is what I want to touch on quickly is that, the Green Party, we want to see education be more accessible to people without financial restrictions. So free tuition for university, college, and the trades is going to help in a lot of sectors, including healthcare and including the building boom that we need to be undertaking. So I just want to make sure that we discuss that today because it's a very important issue. And I'm not hearing a lot from anybody else talking about this, the shortage of skilled labor in all these areas and how we're going to address it. But yes, we need that hospital and we need the people working in it.
Thank you, David. Joanne, do you support and will you honor the recent commitment to building new hospital infrastructure in our region?
Thank you. Short answer, yes. We need to move forward on hospital projects like the one that's been committed to for Kitchener to create more capacity for our growing area. But as others have said, they're just furniture. That would just be furniture without the staff to staff them. So we need to make sure that we have the nurses, the doctors, the personal support health workers that are the glue that hold our healthcare system together. There's just not enough of them. So we do have to invest, speed up the accreditation of internationally trained nurses. We need to make sure we have a strong public education system and a strong post-secondary education system so that we are training the people of tomorrow. And we need to make sure that it is affordable. Post-secondary is affordable for everyone. And the other thing I would like to add is just that the best healthcare is preventative healthcare. So we need to make sure that we are keeping as many people as possible out of hospitals in the first place by putting mental health care under OHIP and investing in things like dental care and pharmacare so that people don't have to go to the hospital for those needs.
Thank you. Next question, we'll stick with healthcare, and it kind of tied into what David said in his last answer. What is your plan to address our local shortage of physicians? So David, we'll begin with you on that one.
Well, in the interest of saving time. Yeah, the physicians and nurses, the registered nurse practitioners, PSWs, they all are lumped in. I was talking about construction and nurses, but it's obvious what I was talking about. There's a lot of skilled labor that we need to get educated. I think that when you look at education, if I'll just expand a little bit on that, we know that we get a lot of funding for that from the federal government. We should be able to work with them to get that funding. If we were right across Canada wanted to have tuition-free university, college, and the trades, that would be $10 billion of an investment. But the federal government gives $18 billion most years to fossil fuel tax breaks and subsidies. It's a matter of priorities, you know? And rather than investing in the old destructive ways, we have to invest in cleaner energy. We have to invest in our health and community. And this is where we need to be putting our money.
Thank you, David. Joanne, what is your plan to address our local shortage of physicians?
Yeah, I kind of answered it in the last one also, where I discussed speeding up accreditation of internationally trained nurses, but also doctors, and making sure that as many people as possible can access our college and universities, reducing debt load by offering more grants and not charging interest on accrued debt. We need to make sure that our post-secondary system is viable. We fund that system at the lowest rates in Canada, and it's been cut and frozen for so many years. And it's time to make investments so that we have the workforce we need in the future.
Thank you. And Ismail, will go with you for the last answer on this question as well.
And that would be the hiring the doctors, yes?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so I will start off by saying Ontarians have a clear choice between Liberal Party that will make much needed investments to clear the surgical backlog and reduce wait time for mental health services and support modernized care for everyone. And the Ford Conservatives right now, who is in power, who hoarded federal COVID-19 funding while our hospitals and long-term care homes scramble to stay afloat. So our Liberal team includes actually doctors, nurses, and hospital leadership. So working with this group, we will end the Ford Conservatives' fight against healthcare heroes by raising the personal support worker base at least $25 an hour. Similarly, we'll repeal the Bill 124 and ensure that mental health services are available for all healthcare professionals. We will train and hire 100,000 nurses, doctors, and other healthcare workers over the next 6 years as we replace retiring workers and expand our system. We will clear, James, the surgical and diagnostic backlog with a $1 billion investment in additional capacity over the next 2 years. And we will also ensure everybody has access to a doctor or a nurse within 24 hours and grow the numbers of hospital beds by 20%. I'm somebody who will be, if I get elected, be a community champion for areas like Hespeler, because we're proposing 15 community health centers to have community health center in Hespeler. So those folks who don't need to travel to a hospital don't have to go there. So we would have a health center in Hespeler. We will ensure everybody has access. Well, I said that earlier. We will get more people with mental health support that they need by reversing the Ford Conservative cuts and investing an additional $3 billion to reduce wait times and so on and so forth. So our platform is really big and we're really focused in this issue. So if you go to the OntarioLiberal.ca, you will find the full platform.
Thank you. I will move into our next topic, which is about local government. Joanne, we'll begin with you on this first question. What do you view as the most important challenge facing our local governments, and how will your plan enable them to face these challenges successfully?
Okay. I think I said this earlier, but provinces can't do everything. We need to work with businesses, the community, and other levels of government to move needed projects forward. Municipalities develop planning strategies for growth, for services, and key social issues in ways that the provincial government cannot. As a trustee, I worked with mayors, councillors, and MPPs to work for things that help students in our schools And as a candidate, I've already met with the mayor to discuss priorities for Kitchener and how the provincial government can help. We need to reestablish the working relationship with municipalities and make sure they get the support they need and the kind of transparent partnership they deserve. My priority would be to speed up the building of affordable housing and work to get everyone a safe place to lay their head each night, and to build local wraparound supports for those needing mental health and addiction services. The NDP will reverse the current government's unfair downloading of public health costs and restore the province's traditional share of funding for the local health units. And if I can add just one more thing about working with all levels of government, there's a lot of division and polarization in the electorate right now. And I don't believe this is the responsibility of any one government or any one party. We need to come together to curate the hate and bring communities together.
Thank you, Joanne. Ismail, what do you view as the most important challenge facing our local governments, and how will your plan enable them to face these challenges successfully?
Well, meeting with our local mayors in Cambridge and in Kitchener, what I've learned is that affordability is the number one thing based on the surveys that the cities have done. That's the crisis that our region is having right now, affordability. And that's the conversation everyone is having. So what would I do personally as a candidate? I think we have to get away with this notion of lobbying our political party instead of just making sure that we put our people first. I would be an advocate for my community. I would even challenge my own party and make sure that I take the needs that the community has and work and collaborate with our municipalities and our region and work with them closely and go out there and in Queen's Park and make sure that the needs are met in our region. So we also, if I can take, for example, in the housing. So we know that residents and their municipal governments have the best firsthand knowledge on how to tackle the housing crisis. So we will empower that, and I will empower that. We will also give them incentives to improve more housing quickly and responsibly by providing, the Ontario Liberals are actually providing $300 million in new funding over 5 years. So an Ontario Liberal government will scrap the MZOs and replace them with the new rules-based measures limited to critical provincial projects only, such as new non-for-profit long-term care homes, affordable housing, or major employment developments.
Thank you. And David, same question for you. What do you view as the most important challenge facing our local governments, and how will your plan enable them to face these challenges successfully?
So I'm thinking that stable funding is really important. They need to have the money locally from the government, provincially, but there needs to be that latitude. Every community has different needs. So rather than prescriptive direction as where the money has to go, look at the budget that the municipality has need for, and allow them then to line by line approve what is making most sense for their communities. We do need to eliminate the provincial rules that would then take into account the exclusions, this exclusionary zoning that we have for buildings along transit routes, and work to better do infill development so we counter the urban sprawl. If we don't have our communities grow and more 15-minute walkable communities where everything is closer together that you need and along transit routes, then the amount of money that a municipality needs to build out its infrastructure, to build out transportation goes up. And then what they're asking for from the provincial government is more, and that's not sustainable. We need to shift to a more European model, and we, with our built up communities, we need to realize that that's what we need to do. And that's a little bit of a shift to try to get a community on board. It's a challenge for our local municipalities. When we're looking at some very tall buildings that are going up, we see a lot of community resistance to our local politicians, but it is something that's necessary. I think we need to balance it though with realizing that when we have beautiful little cores like Hespeler Village with that historic charm like Elora or St. Jacobs and what have you. We need to preserve those areas while also doing densification and infill developments in a sustainable way that our communities are more concentrated when everything's close, while still having recreational development, which is something that municipalities have struggled with. And Hespeler is in dire need of a recreational park for kids to be able to play in, like for skateboarding and what have you. So this is something where the province needs to be able to give the money to the municipality and let the municipality decide. But we do need to have proper funding for all the projects with a vision for the Ontario that we want and the communities we want.
Thank you, David. Our next question will surround around talent, but more so on some childcare issues as well that we're facing in our communities. So Ismael, we'll begin with you. What's your plan for childcare as a way to ensure parents can fully participate in the economy in whatever way they choose? Sorry, Ismael, you're on mute again.
Thank you. Parents and caregivers have stepped up during an incredible, difficult couple of years and juggling obligations to both work and family. My family is one of them. I work for the City of Kitchener in the Community Services Department. My wife and I have 4 kids that are attending public school at the age of 10, 9, and 7 and 5. And my wife is also a registered nurse. So just imagine having to be in the house and teaching my kids in the home when the pandemic was happening. And my wife was the first responders, and she was out there helping others. So I'm one of those families who are juggling those obligations at home. So for some working parents, especially women, the strains has pushed them out of the workforce. So one of the things that we were doing in Ontario Liberal government to reduce average fees of licensed childcare to $10 a day from over $50 a day, saving parents about $10,000 per child a year. So parents aren't punished for the Ford Conservatives' failure to act. We will make childcare discounts retroactive to January 1st, 2022, giving families back an average of $2,750 per child. We'll also move quickly to reduce fees for before and after school care by over half to a $10 a day by September 2022. So we will create 30,000 new jobs for early childhood educators and other childcare staff to build capacity in workplaces, schools, community spaces where they are needed the most. We will ensure we have enough ECEs who are well equipped to help kids flourish by providing free tuition for all ECEs program at Ontario College. We will give parents more economic stability and valuable time with their growing families by topping up the 18-month parental leave so they can stay home longer without their EI benefits being reduced. And we will provide childcare for parents working shifts and non-traditional hours. Thank you.
Thank you. David, what's your plan for childcare as a way to ensure parents can fully participate in the economy in whatever way they choose?
Promising them childcare so that they can participate in the economy is kind of an empty promise if we don't have enough workers and enough daycare centers. So we do need to do that education and to get people in the workforce for that. I'm pleased to hear that some people are getting on board with plans for some free education to encourage people to get that training. This is something that is desperately needed on that and many other fronts. The one thing that I would say too is the shortage of the workforce that we've seen in, say, nursing and the stress that they have that causes lack of retention there. So many want to quit. We are now beginning to see with the daycare individuals. We're going to be seeing professionals there that with their wages being capped at $25 an hour, This is a pay cut for them by going to this daycare plan that we're being adopting here. So this is something we need to consider, that if we're going to have daycare centers being operated with people making, essentially taking a pay cut for themselves, some of them aren't going to be wanting to stay there. So we need to value the people that are doing these jobs more, as well as give them the reinforcements they need so we can have enough daycare centers to be able to honor the promises that we're making to the community to have these spaces. We need to make sure that our childcare includes the missing before school and the missing after school together with the school childcare, because if people don't necessarily just work for 4 or 5 hours. You know, if you have a full-time job, you need better coverage than that.
Thank you, David. And Joanne, how will your plan address the childcare issues so more parents can participate in the economy?
So we need to make the role of registered early childhood educators a career. We need to attract people to it. The NDP will create a wage floor of $25 an hour for registered early childhood educators and $20 for all other staff. We're going to make sure that they have benefits and access to professional development and planning time, so that it becomes attractive to people to want to go into this profession. And of course, as I mentioned before, we need to make education affordable with more grants and for post-secondary. And we will work with the federal government to speed up the $10 a day daycare and before and after care, and work with them to increase the number of spaces available so that anyone that needs daycare has access to it.
Thank you, Joanne. I will go on to the next question about, and sticking with talent. What will you do to encourage more Ontarians to pursue careers in the skilled trades? Sorry, I think I lost my rotation, but we'll begin with Ismail on this question.
No problem, James. I think we have to have a conversation with our colleges and come up with a better suitable plan for going out in high schools also and educating and then creating curriculums out of funding and support for those who wants to get into that. Because actually, you're right, because there's a really higher need for that trades skills, because we're missing that, because everyone who's doing that right now is almost retired or otherwise the need has become, extensive. So we will work with colleges, we will work with our public schools and find a way to create education for that and make it easy for everybody to go into that. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go in reverse order, David. So we'll go with Joanne here for this question too. What will you do to encourage more Ontarians to pursue careers in the skilled trades?
Okay, thank you. So yeah, we need a strong public education system that has opportunities like SHOP, that has opportunities for students to explore the trades, to give everyone an opportunity to explore different careers out there that they may not be considering. And that comes to properly, and that will happen by properly funding our public education system. It's not just about education. We need to make sure that those we train stay in our region to support our region for trades. We're lucky to have 2 universities and a college here. So we want to keep the workers that are graduating from there in our region to support them because their expertise will drive the future of business and innovation. It's expensive to live here. So again, this comes back to housing and affordability, and we need to make sure that people can stay in the communities where they learn and then they can work there. And I know the question was specifically about trades, but we also need to make sure our post-secondary system is viable in general. And because we're graduating engineers, people in science, people in the arts, all of that will also help innovation and is an investment in our future.
Thank you. And David, how will your plan address the to encourage more people to get into the skilled trades?
Well, to encourage them to get into skilled trades, I think our youth need to be aware that this is a very lucrative market to be getting into. Not only is there almost a guarantee for a job because we need so many of them, but you can make a lot of money in it. We also need to talk to these kids right in high school. When I was there, I loved doing woodworking, the automotive, the welding. Not only was it fun to do, but the sense of accomplishment of making something with my hands, it gave me an increased sense of self-esteem, I think, as a youth. Be able to say, hey, look at this chandelier I made, look at this dining room table I made, look at these chairs, or look at how I fixed this car, which, you know, cars have changed a lot over the years, and I can't really do much to fix my own car now. But you know what, this is something that I think we need to boost the profile of it and let them know these are important jobs. And then we need to have the educational spaces there, and we need to make the connections with the mentors so that people can get the training they need. And we need to be doing this now. When we're looking at that 20% leaving in 10 years, not only do we have to make up that 20%, but our communities are rapidly growing. So that number is actually going to be more like 30, 35% of the numbers we're going to be needing to replace and to hire. So let's just not pitter patter, let's get at her. So.
Thank you, David. We'll go into the next topic, which is transit. Joanne, we'll begin with you on this question here. Transit ridership remains well below pre-pandemic levels, but there hasn't been a commensurate drop in operating costs. How will your plan support keeping transit viable?
Okay. So let's be honest, transit in Kitchener South-Hespeler is not great. Only parts of it have access to an ion, and many parts of it only have limited access to buses. I know many young people in Toronto can make the decision to not get their license or buy a car because of the robust public transit system that exists there. That's not a viable option here. If you don't have a car on the weekend, you're taking an Uber. Getting to Toronto to watch a Jays game or see a concert becomes a weekend-long excursion unless you have a car. So, and owning a car drives up the cost of living for people, and it puts more cars on the road that hurts the environment. So the NDP has Ontario used to fund 50% of municipal transit operating net costs, a successful formula that helped make the TTC and other municipal transit agencies the envy of the world. So the NDP will restore the province's traditional 50% funding for municipal transit and paratransit operations and ensure immediate improvements to transit. We'll also expand and electrify the GO bus and rail network so more Ontarians can get around conveniently, comfortably, and affordably. And we'll bring two-way all-day GO service to Kitchener-Waterloo, something MPP Fife, who's an NDP, has been advocating for since she took office in 2012.
Thank you, Joanne. David, we'll go to you next on this question. With transit ridership remaining well below pre-pandemic levels, how will your plan support keeping transit viable?
It's really not the cost. There have been surveys done on this, and you know, this $1 a ride or $2 a ride, whatever, that's not really the issue. The issue is the efficiency of it and it being available to suit their needs. I like that saying that if you build it, they will come. From that Field of Dreams movie. Absolutely love that mantra right now. If something is not accessible, if you know, you finish work at 1 o'clock in the morning, you having taken a bus to work, that's not now going to be your option to get home. So you have to find other ways of doing it. And, you know, maybe you'll ride a bike and that's healthy for you and good for you, but you're not going to be using public transit. If you're going to be asking people to use public transit, you're going to have to make it something that does work for them. And this two-way all-day GO that we've been talking about since Catherine Fife took office, I remember the first time I ran in 2014, that was an issue, and Highway 7 was an issue. And I was surprised that it was still an issue in 2018. I'm surprised it's still an issue in 2022. Our decision-making and planning between the province and the municipalities of what the needs are for interconnected communities and intra-community transportation, there needs to be some kind of improvement there, obviously. And I don't know. I just look at the common denominators for the leadership here. The last 4 years, we had Doug Ford, and when I look at what we had before that, a 15-year run. I'm thinking maybe it's time for a change. I think we maybe need some different voices and some different people getting together, being more collaborative, and trying to put these answers into play.
Thank you, David. Ismail, the same question. How will your plan support keeping transit viable?
Well, I'm just going to say that it is built, but people can't afford it, especially affordability. When we have affordability is the main issue that we have in our region. If people can't afford it and everything is built for it in our transportation, how do we support folks to and encourage people to leave their cars or otherwise and help the environment? So what the Liberals are proposing is to strengthen transit network benefits, benefit drivers and commuters alike by getting more cars off the road and getting more people moving around the province. I know the Greens have always talked about the environment, and this is what they're based on, and transportation is a big deal in this, and that will help our environment by taking that many cars off the road. We want to save people money and move more people on transit, especially right now, as ridership is still a fraction of pre-pandemic levels. We have the equipment, we have the trains in our region, but nobody is going. One bus ride is $3.25. Just imagine if we make that $1. The seniors can afford it. We're making the veterans free for them to ride our buses. So we can reintroduce for folks to go on the buses and our transportation. And we will make it more affordable and safer to bike, walk, drive by providing $500 rebate for, as I said earlier, for e-bikes, expanding cycling lanes and trains, making it easier to find and park bikes. At the same time, we know that more work is required to build our roads and transit infrastructure so that more families can get where they need to go, where they're going quickly. So for too long, changing governments in Ontario have ripped up or ignored existing transit plans, delaying progress and contributing to more gridlock and pollution. We will put an end to political games by maintaining all existing funded transit plans, getting shovels in the ground quickly, and we are reversing Doug Ford's cuts to electric vehicles rebates by providing up to 9,000, as I said earlier, 9,500. So this is very well connected with the environment and also helping our transportation to get more folks on the bus. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next topic of discussion will be emerging from COVID, rather. David, we'll begin with you on this question. The great majority of Ontarians are fully vaccinated. When it comes to mandatory vaccinations, however, there are concerns even among the fully vaccinated. In what settings or under what circumstances would your plan require vaccinations?
Well, that's a really good question here. I know that when you're talking about our plan, I know that the Greens seem to be pretty much on board with everyone else in trying to encourage people to be vaccinated, to try to reduce the severity of your symptoms, your illness, disease. And, you know, we're finding though that people fully vaccinated are getting COVID, carrying it, and can even share it. Our Ontario Green Party leader just yesterday announced that he had been exposed to a staffer that had COVID, and He himself tested positive. He has no symptoms, but he has it. So he's now needing to isolate and campaign remotely. Since anybody can catch the virus, carry it, and share it, separating people based on vaccination status, in my opinion, seems to be foolish. We have people that have been fully vaccinated that go and sit shoulder to shoulder, thinking that they're then protected and they're safe at a ball game. And people that weren't vaccinated and weren't able to go had to stay home. And as a result, they certainly were not sharing it. And one other thing that I'll just share with you, we have some careers like in policing. Some of my police friends, I retired from policing from 30 years with Waterloo Regional Police, but there were some that chose not to be vaccinated. And when they wanted to stay working, they were allowed as long as they got a test before they worked. And those people being tested every day before each shift, we knew that they weren't carrying it, which was good. But people that weren't being tested every day because they were vaccinated, they could be carrying it and share it. So this is just something we have to look at. Is vaccination a very important tool in limiting disease and the severity of disease? I think that, there are people that argue both sides on there, and I think that we've become very divisive about it. I myself, I received the vaccination in full confidence that it would help me. I'm, someone that I know that I've had some lung issues in the past. I've had some bronchitis issues. I didn't want to catch COVID. I didn't want to suffer the severe consequences of it. But as we divide people based on vaccinated or not and implementing mandates, that's something that I think that we really need to think long and hard about, whether it really actually is effective. And if it's not effective, what do we do instead? And maybe when healthcare system is getting burdened, we limit the contact everybody has with one another so we don't spread the virus. And when the healthcare system is able to cope with it, then we open it up for everyone. But I think we need to be aware of the fact that whatever we do, we should only be doing if it's effective. And what we have with good intentions initially, maybe we can learn from and say, well, okay, what do we do? Good, solid N95 masks that will reduce the spread of virus, great. Distancing from one another, keeping your 6 feet, great. There's all kinds of great things, nutrition and vitamins, etc. You want to take good care of your health. You want to restrict movement of people that are infected. So testing, widely available testing, rapid testing. These are important things. So don't get me wrong. I'm not against healthcare measures, but I think this divisiveness that we had with mandates is because of the fact that it has been so ineffective. And I think we need to be honest with ourselves and honest with each other about that and move forward in a better way in the future.
Thank you, David. Ismail, same question. Under what circumstances and what settings would your plan require vaccinations?
So we promote vaccination. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about the advocacy piece that I've been involved in our region. I was lucky enough to be part of the advisory committee for community engagement for the vaccination in this region. So we've had great conversations with doctors, scientists who's knowledgeable about this virus, and getting their advices and trusting them is a big deal. If we don't trust our scientists and our doctors, we are heading the wrong direction. So if our scientists and doctors are saying this is safe to take it, we should take it and encourage our folks to be safe. And I was out there, and I was one of the people who were advocating for that and getting communities to understand. Because I came from a continent called Africa, which is a continent that has been tested. All vaccinations or all these medications, we take it there, and pharmaceuticals test on people. So we have that fear of not trusting anything that's going to go into our body, but having to have those conversations with our communities. We've learned that we just need to build trust and actually share the education with folks. So what we will focus on, what matters, keeping people healthy and safe as we finish the fight against this virus. We can take lessons from this pandemic to build up our resilience in the face of future threats and rebuild trust in evidence-based decision-making. How are we going to do that? We'll do this by improving access to PCR testing, permanently increase laboratory capacity for future testing, conduct public inquiry to learn from COVID pandemic, and build an Ontario pandemic resilience hub and plan for future crises, one that must be reviewed and updated regularly.
Thank you, Ismail. And Joanne, same question. In what settings or under what circumstances would your plan require vaccinations?
Thank you. So absolutely, we need to put our trust in the science and our public health department. They know what is best for us from a health perspective. We need to follow the science and listen to their advice. And we need to protect those in the highest risk settings. We cannot allow our long-term care settings to become, to suffer the way they did under the current government. We need to make sure that businesses have the PPE that they need to protect their workers and the resources they need so that they can keep their doors open. And we do need to learn from the lessons of the pandemic. There were so many things that we could have prevented in waves 4, 5, and 6 if we had listened to the science, if we had followed their advice and not made some political decisions that resulted in future waves.
Thank you. The next topic we will go to is private sector growth. And the question that we will begin with, and Joanne, because I screwed up the order, I'll come to you first on this one. So when it comes to a concern that newer small businesses continually raise is the difficulty of doing business with governments. How will your plan make it easier for companies to participate in government procurement and sell domestic products and solutions to meet domestic needs?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been speaking with small business owners in the community, and they're worried about keeping their doors open. They need the support of a reliable and consistent partner in the government. The NDP is going to engage in strategic government procurement from small and medium-sized businesses and nonprofits. We're going to ensure that small businesses compete with big industry, and that will allow us to invest in really good jobs here in Ontario. Our Buy Ontario program will include a social procurement policy to support diverse vendors. And private sector growth isn't just about increasing sales, but it's also about driving down expenses. The NDP is going to work with the insurance industry to ensure that commercial insurance is affordable for small businesses. And we'll review and reopen the Commercial Tenancies Act to standardize commercial lease agreements and explore the creation of rent guidelines for small and medium enterprises.
Thank you, Joanne. Ismail, a concern newer small businesses continually raise is the difficulty of doing business with governments. How will your plan make it easier for companies to participate in government procurement?
Well, I will simply say that I'm a big fan of businesses, because I think this region, in our region, is built on small businesses. And the pandemic actually showed that we did not favor our small businesses. That's why we've lost a lot of small businesses in our communities. But we favored the 1% or the 500 Fortune companies to be open in pandemic so they can make more money. So what I will focus on, because I'm going to refer to everybody on our platform, because there's so many things that we've highlighted and how we're going to be working with our small businesses. But I want to focus on this. We live in a region that is described as it's the second Silicon Valley. So with the economic impact of COVID-19, companies and people will embrace a technology-enabled on-demand workforce models and platforms. So COVID-19 has accelerated the disruption of many industries, almost all industries, including retail, hospitality, healthcare, education, construction, and technology, will require rapid transformation to their business models in order to remain viable. So, how does Region of Waterloo take the bull by the horns? So that opportunity of technology, right? So we're very fortunate to have companies like Communitech, who has done an amazing job in this region. So how do we support them and advocate for the region and the cities for this potential economic growth? So fund programs that help small businesses and medium-sized businesses go digital, help our entrepreneurs to sustain here and figure out how we can, as a government, to support those folks who have brilliant minds, so they are able to create those products and help those demands. Prevent data breaches by promoting affordable cybersecurity, modernize privacy, data and intellectual property laws, and also invest in high potential Ontario companies with proven track records of innovation, such as Communitech. Thank you.
Thank you, Ismail. And David, same question. How will your plan make it easier for companies to participate in government procurement?
I thought your question was small business sector growth, but the procurement part I'll talk about secondary. The first part I want to talk about with small business growth, we need to, as a government, review our regulations that disproportionately affect small businesses. And a quick example I want to give on that is how we have boutique, wines, we have craft beer shops, and we have these largely controlled so that they can only sell their product on site. The LCBO controls what goes in there. The 5 private conglomerate or companies, beer companies that run the beer store, decide what goes there. We need to change regulations so that these shops can legally open up outlets off-site so that they can actually thrive more. Because not everybody can go right to the microbrewery or to the craft winery to be able to get the products. We want to make them more widely available. I do like the one thing that was very briefly touched on by Ismail, the digital. We need a digital Main Street program. We need to have small businesses being able to be promoted to be able to share their products online locally, so that it's like a portal that we can go in and find the products. We can still get them very locally, but we don't have to hunt so hard for them. And they can be promoted to be able to compete with the Amazon Goliaths. We need to support these little guys. As for procurement, when we have smaller corporations trying to compete with large, this is very, very important that we have an open and transparent procurement process so that we don't have this crony favoritism, the rules set that kind of exclude the smaller businesses by not having them with the same information and outreach, the same opportunities to participate, that the bigger companies with more staff, they have more fingers in pies and fingers on the pulses. They know what's going on. It's harder for a smaller business to have that kind of wherewithal to stand up against the big giants. We need to do more outreach to make sure that everybody is informed. For the people that have skills or services to offer to government, that we let them know what the process is and reach out to them. And that will allow them to be able to develop and thrive.
Thank you, David. The next question we will go back to, emerging from COVID as a topic of discussion. And the question is, hospitality and tourism were among the sectors hardest hit by the pandemic, and they're still hurting. How will your plan bridge the hospitality and tourism sectors through this crisis and ensure it continues to deliver to our shared prosperity? Ismail, we'll begin with you on that question. Sorry, Ismail, you're on mute again.
Well, our platform shows that, and we consider them as we're coming out of this pandemic very hard. And as we emerge, we'll find a way, and they're part of our small businesses and major businesses, that it allows communities to be vibrant. So we will work with them. We will work with through and collaboration, and then see how the government can support in these small businesses.
Thank you. David, same question. How will your plan bridge the hospitality and tourism sectors through this crisis and ensure it continues to deliver to our shared prosperity?
We need to support the additional funding and the expansion of the staycation tax credit and ensure that it includes the dining at restaurants. We need to weed out the red tape that disproportionately affects small businesses. That's part of what I was talking about with the microbreweries and the wineries. We need to allow these businesses to be able to thrive. And right now we're throttling them with the rules and regulations and the red tape. I almost hate to say that red tape phrase now because we have that being applied for so many things from our current government when it talks where it's basically red tape to protect our environment. So let's go ahead and pave over the Holland Marsh. Whenever I hear red tape, it's hard for me to take that with a serious thought because of the way it's so misused. But it's very much the reality that small businesses are really encumbered by red tape. So maybe I'll find another phrase that I like better than that because that one's not sitting well with me. But they need our help to have the regulations fit them better.
Thank you, David. And Joanne, how will your plan bridge the hospitality and tourism sectors through this crisis and ensure it continues to deliver to our shared prosperity?
Yeah, we know that the tourism industry has been hit especially hard by the pandemic, and we would continue the Ontario staycation tax credit for 2 years and provide another year of Ontario tourism recovery program to help the local tourism industry. And we would also provide, this isn't specifically tourism, but we'd also provide the hardest hit small businesses with support through a small business recovery grant. And we'll launch a COVID-19 emergency business fund for Black-owned small businesses and entrepreneurs and others who have faced systemic barriers to accessing capitals, such as women and people with disabilities. And we'll simplify the process to access support programs, providing reliable help so that all Ontario communities have equitable resources to succeed.
Thank you, Joanne. That now concludes the question and answer portion of the forum. We will begin closing remarks from the candidates. It's 1 minute maximum and a reverse of the original rotation. So Ismail, will begin with you for closing remarks.
So thank you, James, and for the invitation, and everybody else who taken part of this amazing conversation, and everyone else who's actually listening. So with a track record of developing and implementing successful partnership as a community leader, I'm uniquely prepared to serve as Kitchener South-Hespeler as a member of Provincial Parliament. So I believe the importance of strengthening communities like Kitchener South-Hespeler by valuing the need of all socioeconomic groups. Kitchener South-Hespeler needs leadership that can work with diverse residents of our riding. Whenever possible, I have partnered with community members and organizations to implement sustainable solutions. I will use these skills to improve the quality of our lives. The Liberal Party is a party committed to you, the people. The Liberal Party reflects my commitment to growing the economy while addressing climate change and the environment. It promises to put families, especially seniors, at the center of public health. It will reinvest public education, which is being gradually defunded by the Conservative Party. Kitchener South-Hespeler has a diverse population, facing a variety of challenges and opportunities. COVID-19 pandemic has shown us how inequitable many of our systems are. So I want to change that. I want to use my community skills to unleash the potential in all of us. If elected, I will also advocate for more affordable housing by supporting the drive by municipalities to allow them to require that developers have a portion of what they build be affordable units. Government should be about people, not private interests and political gains. My promise to fight to maintain strong public education and health system and focus on housing, climate change, and the environment, I believe the policies of the Liberal Party will deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Ismail. I believe Joanne is next with her closing remarks. So Joanne, go ahead.
Thank you, James, for moderating this evening or this afternoon, and to everyone for tuning in. It's evident that there is much to do for the people across Kitchener South-Hespeler, creating good paying local jobs, lowering the cost of living, investing in social infrastructure that supports everyone and prevents future lockdowns. The NDP has a plan to fix ailing systems, creating good paying jobs and investing in people. As your MPP at Queen's Park, I will bring my experience as a trustee working with other levels of government, local partners in the community to fix what's broken and build a better Ontario. I will bring my experience as a former small business owner to all discussions with the party and at the legislature. But most of all, I will be out in the community and I will bring your voice to Queen's Park. On June 2nd, you have a choice to keep doing things the same way that has happened for years and years, or vote for the NDP that will do things differently and make things better for you. I hope you will consider me to represent you at Queen's Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. And David, we'll finish with your closing remarks.
Thank you, James. Again, I'm David Weber, the Green Party of Ontario's MPP candidate for Kitchener South-Hespeler. Based on my conversations at the doors over the last several months, I have informed priorities and commentary of issues found on my blog post. They're located on my website, davidforksh.ca. Our Green Party of Ontario's climate plan, mental health plan, affordable housing and livable communities plan, as well as several others, are found on gpo.ca website. One of the huge issues we do have now is poverty because of all the unaffordability with several issues. Until we get a grip on that, it's all the more important that our politicians focus on this as a priority. As an elected MPP, and knowing the severity of poverty in our community, I will donate 10% of my MPP salary to the Cambridge Food Bank, which does a wonderful job in supporting so many in need. I thank you for hearing what I've had to say today and for your anticipated exploration to learn more. I welcome your feedback to me so that you can help me improve my understanding of issues. Together we can do better. Nothing else is going to influence government and do the improvements that we need in government more than by having the green voices present to help Mike Schreiner, our elected MPP from Guelph, and our green leader, to have others speaking up for valuable input, other ideas, to work in collaboration with all elected people to come to great solutions. On or before June 2nd, I ask for your support to make that happen and allow me to be our community's champion as your MPP.
Thank you, David, and thank you to all for the closing remarks. On behalf of the Chamber and Rogers, I would like to thank all candidates for taking their time from their busy schedules to participate in this forum today. Thank you to our title sponsor, Kitchener-Waterloo Association of Realtors, and our media sponsors, City News 570 and Rogers TV. And of course, I would also like to thank everyone from the community for your attendance. If you are a resident of Kitchener South-Hespeler, the election date is rapidly approaching, so please ensure you're aware of voting location. The Chamber and Rogers hope this forum has provided some relevant perspectives on your issues of concern. Thank you and have a great afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone.
Thank you for having us.